Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Will with Schedulefly, and I'm really excited today to have Nick Gitsis on the phone. This is a really interesting story, a very different than the traditional story we hear from restaurant owners. So, the first part, which is Nick is he's in Warsaw, New York. The restaurant is Silverlake Family Restaurant. His dad immigrated from Greece many years ago in 1951 at age 19. Was involved in restaurants for quite some time. Had some restaurants with his brothers, and then went out on his own in 1990 and started Silverlake Family Restaurant in a different town. They moved to Warsaw They sold that and moved to Warsaw in '91, and Silver Lake has been in Warsaw running very successfully since 1991. So quite a long tenure. Nick is not an on-site owner, although he is there now. He's a pilot. He spends most of his time in the Philippines. He's home several times a year, but he's not there running the restaurant all year. So he's doing it remotely and relying on a really good team of people to help him. So, but he's there now. He's here in the States, and he was kind enough to take some time today. So Nick, thank you very, very much for doing that.
I will. Sure, no problem.
So tell me a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about your dad, Stevie, who came over here from Greece. He was born in '31. He came in 1951 and was involved in the restaurant business and had some businesses with his brothers. So you grew up. I mean, when you grew up, he was from when you were born. He was involved in restaurants. Is that right?
That's correct. Actually, he's been in restaurants since before I was born. He started his restaurant career in Rochester, and he worked. His first job was for a guy named Nick Tahu, and Nick Tahu is a landmark restaurant now in Rochester, and they're famous in Rochester. We have a Rochesterian type of plate, and the plate is called the garbage plate. And that's what Nick Tahoe's is famous for. And Rochester in general, if you come to Monroe County or to the Rochester area in particular, we're famous for garbage plates and hot dogs and hamburgers and Texas hots and things like that. And that's how he started in that was in the late 50s or early 60s. And then from there, he was working for this guy who was his cousin. Nick Tahoe was his cousin, and then he branched out and set up a restaurant on a place called Monroe Avenue, and it's called Gitsis Texas Hots. And itself became a landmark in Rochester, a landmark restaurant. And him and his brothers, they branched out and opened up a bunch of restaurants around Rochester that catered mostly to working class, blue collar. In those days, Kodak was a big thing, so we had big Kodak crowds and Xerox crowds and working class type of environment that was open 24 hours a day, and that's how he got started.
Were you in the restaurant a lot as a youth? Did you start working early or?
I grew up in a restaurant. We were always interacting with customers. We started working when we were, 10, 12 years old. We were helping clean, dishwashing, cleaning parking lots, cutting grass. Yeah, we were working, a whole family, and we have a bunch of cousins also, but we were all working from a young age in the restaurants, and we really were a family operated type of establishment, businesses, and we had to work. Yeah, we worked in the restaurants.
Did you? Was it something you felt like you would always? Something you wanted to do for the rest of your life? Did you know early on you'd always be a part of it, or is it just something that kind of happened over time? And I want to ask you more about becoming a pilot too, but did you have times when you left the restaurant business and we didn't have anything to do with it?
Well, the restaurant is it's really a hard type of job. It's a lot of work. Tiring, long hours, things like that. But I always loved the business and our identity because the restaurants were carried our family name. It was a hardwire identity to the restaurant. So I always thought I would be in restaurants. But as I was getting older, I also wanted to fly planes. And I went to flight school when I was 20. But in between flight school and Going back and forth summers, I would always come back and work in the restaurants, and in those years also, my dad had gone on his own, so I was helping out as much as I can with those restaurants we set up on our own. And one of them was this restaurant here in Warsaw where we have now. And yes, I was very much involved from the very beginning of this restaurant, which started off as a little ice cream joint, but over the years has grown into a full-fledged, full-service type of family-style, all-American diner type of place.
What have you? What did you learn from your dad, and what are the foundational things that you've now carried forward to, to enable this restaurant to endure for so many years? I mean, that's an amazing track record to have opened in '91, and here we are, almost 30 years later. What did you all build the business upon, and what hasn't changed over all these years? I know a lot has changed, but what hasn't changed?
Yeah. Well, one thing that my dad was always good at was picking locations. He wasn't afraid of going, 30, 40 minutes, 1 hour out of Rochester trying to find locations that were undiscovered or undeveloped at that time. And he always looks towards the future. His eye is always looking at what will this place look like 10 years later, 20 years later. What will the development look like? And sometimes his vision is so far out that it takes a long time to realize, some of his projects didn't work because he was looking too far maybe in the future. But with this place in particular in Warsaw, we've been coming here actually since it was an ice cream place, even since I was young. And he would bring me to this place and tell me this is a good location for a restaurant. And after many years, we ended up buying it in 1991. And then now, 20-some years later, 27 or 8 years later, that's proven to be a very good location. The road is a very good road. There's a lot of traffic on the road now. The village has grown. It's developed. So we're like the anchor restaurant, one of the anchor restaurants in town. There's a few others, but we're one of the main ones. So yeah, he had a good eye for location, number one. Number two, he's the type of guy that loved to work 16-hour days. He would say when he was working or when he was younger that working is a joy. There's a Greek saying that says working is a joy, and that's what I want to be doing. And as long as I work, I'm happy. So that was always his standpoint, to the point where he rarely went on vacations. Our restaurants were always open on holidays. If even at least half days, let's say, that was what he normally would do. The customers were always regulars, and we took good care of the customers. Many of our customers then and now are very much regular customers, and we cater to them and tailor to them and adjust to what the public wants, at least in our category, what they want and how they want it. So I think that's the secret to his and our success in the restaurant industry.
What are some examples of things you say you're kind of make changes based on what the customers want? What are some things that you've done from that perspective?
Well, like in our restaurant, like for example, we started early with a POS system, which helped improve. This is something like my dad would have never have done, but we put in a POS system, which helps streamline the ordering, the readability, the efficiency of the interaction between front and back of house. For the customers, we do special plates. Like we have different dishes that are made just for particular customers. They have a special request, and at the end of the day, it ends up being on our menu, which maybe the only one person is buying, but we make that in a special way for them. Or our plates are highly modifiable. So if a customer wants something this way or that way, with this, without that, add this, change this, we do a lot of that. So which is demanding on the kitchen, but we still are able to do a lot of that. And other improvements like different things like our access to our restaurant is fully handicapable. The doors are automatic. That's not a common feature you see on restaurants. We have buttons on our tables, service call buttons. These are buttons where people can press if they need a waiter or waitress, for example, so they don't have to wait or try to flag someone down. They can press a button, and this button buzzes on vibrates on a watch that the waitresses wear. So it's about making it as efficient as possible. And another thing we've done and we just remodeled the place. We did a huge renovation about 4 years ago, and we put a test drive-through, and it's also a pickup window. So the restaurant isn't designed for a drive-through, but along the back we made a drive-through. It's a short drive, actually, but what has proven to be very successful is that people can pick up their takeouts and they don't have to get out of the car. So our takeout business has been growing quite a bit by doing something like that. Because
they call in, and then when they come, they're not okay. Gotcha, it's there at the window. That's pretty cool.
They don't have to hop out of their car. They just drive up to the window, and we hand it to them and cash them out from the window. And of course, the next step for that, which we haven't done yet, is online ordering. But once they can order online and pay online, then they don't even have to pay at the window. They just have to grab whatever they ordered and go. So those are some of the things we're doing. And, we have a lot of features which are family style oriented. We have a salad bar, which is very popular in our place. Also a lot of work, but goes really well. So those are some of the things we're doing here.
So then, so tell me more about, you're a pilot now. You're in the Philippines most of the time. So how long have you been doing that, as well as owning the restaurant from afar? And tell me about that. How are you able to do that?
Well, I do that by traveling a lot, but I'm a pilot. I started a little operation in Manila. I've been there since 1995, and I go back and forth quite a bit. But at the same time, we have as part of our restaurant, our crew, we have promoted people and made them either supervisors or managers, so it's not just family that's involved in the management of the store. We also have in-house managers that run the place. So a lot of that now, especially these days, the connectivity, like your schedule fly, gives you visibility on what's going on, but I don't have to necessarily be on premise. Or communication-wise, if I'm using a chat app of any kind, we can communicate. We can have constant chat apps with different groups in the restaurant, so we can communicate issues, but I don't have to be at the store to see what's going on and take care of it. Where in the older days, it was a little bit more complex. It's actually a lot easier now to manage remotely a place like this. And besides that, the crew is a very good crew. We have an excellent bunch of people. They know their responsibilities, and they execute pretty good in terms of keeping the place running and keeping it together and doing what's expected of them.
Do you, since you travel a lot and you're around, around the world, are you a discerning customer when you go into restaurants? Are you looking for things that you may can pick up, or are you looking for things that, just reinforce that, you're doing things really well because you're not seeing it done well elsewhere?
Well, yeah, definitely. I get a lot of ideas traveling around the world, and being in big cities, being in airports, you're exposed to like the latest cutting edge stuff that's happening in the restaurants, or you're in the big cities in Asia right now. I don't know how much you know about what's going on over there, but it's really a robust and expanding economies, and there's a lot of diverse cuisines, and there's a lot of that going on. From the food side, I haven't brought a lot of that, what I've seen outside to here, because the taste in this area is very geared towards comfort food.
Yeah.
the palate is, it takes time to introduce new things, and no one wants anything too exotic. But some features, like in terms of the call button on the table, I found that in Manila, and I brought that here. There are some unique dishes that we've introduced, but we use mostly our Greek heritage as the international angle at this place. Although, with the way the traffic has developed lately on this in this area, the customer profile is very different now. So we have a lot of locals, but we also have a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, Toronto, Niagara Falls, and also tourists that are moving between these cities. So we get people from Poland, we get people from Ecuador. Like just in the last week, I've had Polish, Ecuadorians, I've had Indians, I've had Chinese, I've had.
Oh goodness.
So, and what's happening because of them coming in, we have a more demanding, more demands on the menu based on like vegetarian, vegan, gluten, things that we hadn't done much of on the past. We're doing more and more on special and trying to cater to these people that want these types of dishes. So we have two different bases we're catering to right now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But you said you've really built it on. I mean, you have a lot of regular customers. What do you all do? And I think you touched on this a little bit. You're really able to cater to their specific requests and needs with your menu. What else do you all do to try to make regulars feel special and to kind of just develop that relationship with them so they have a better experience at Silverlake than they might elsewhere?
Well, our regulars have one really big successful thing we've done, and we started about 4 or 5 years ago, was we implemented what we call the loyalty program. So a customer has a card, and then with that card, they get points for every dollar they spend, and then with that, they end up getting effectively $10 for every $100 they spend in the restaurant, and that has proven to be wildly successful with the locals. So, and that simple loyalty program, which rewards them for coming in on a regular basis, gets them excited, and they feel like they're getting value for being regulars. So where in other places they don't have those kind of features, and that's one thing that's worked out pretty good. We had a breakdown in our POS for about a month and a half, where we had to upgrade the whole system because the server had a problem, and then my actual touch screens were outdated and blah blah blah. And to make a long story short, I had to upgrade the whole system, and it cost a lot of money. But during the time that loyalty wasn't working properly because of the software difference, because of the upgrade of the new, and then I couldn't upgrade to the new software because of these older units, and the loyalty wasn't working, and it was almost like a revolution in the restaurant with my regulars because they wanted to get their points and they wanted to get their.
Oh no! God.
So it was So we got through that, but it became very obvious to me at that point how much they really cared about that, and
right,
and how effective it really is.
Yeah, a tough little bump in the road there, but clearly validation that thing's working really well.
Right, exactly.
Well, you must have a really awesome team of people there, because even with chat apps and Schedulefly and anything that you can use to communicate when you're gone that much, you've got to have people that you trust implicitly and that will do a great job and treat it like it's their own, like you would.
Yeah, I do. And, there's control measures. Like another thing that we were able to do at our place that is not common in this type of restaurant is we do waitress banking. So which means that the waiter collects all the cash, all the credit cards and all of that, and they're fully responsible at the end of the day. They make a deposit in a safe, their sales. So there's no question in terms of like cash loss, which might be common with a cash register or with a one point of payment in a restaurant. so you need a lot of security features also like that. That's a little bit cumbersome for the customer because they can't just come up to a cash register and pay. There's no cash register to pay at per se. They have to pay their waiter or waitress, but that helps us manage the cash side but the rest, yeah, the team is very good. There's 33 or 34 people that work in the restaurant, so it's a good sized team for this type of operation also. But yeah, I have people that have been with me from the beginning, two in particular, so they're very active in the day-to-day management still. Although one is semi-retired now, but she's still handling cash, treasury functions, things like that. And then the kitchen handles a lot of the ordering now. And we split. We split the responsibilities. What would normally sit on maybe one person, we're constantly trying to push responsibility to different people. So the burden of running rests on everyone, and it's easier to manage that way. So delegating responsibility is an important feature of how to run a place remotely.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot of really loyal staff and customers. But having a staff that you can trust like that and those good measures in place is, I'm sure, makes it a lot easier for you. What's the most challenging thing in your mind, and maybe something that's going on now, or just something you've sent, sort of a general trend with owning and running a restaurant? What's been the most challenging aspect of that for you in the years you've done it?
Well, continually finding new help is always a challenge. Finding people that can take the responsibility of what it means to have a job. It's not just like a lot of times in restaurants we get people who want quick money and don't want a lot of responsibility, or they want to come in because this is an easy, low-hanging fruit to them in terms of getting the job because there's a lot of demand. So the problem is some of the problems is the change in wages that's been happening in the past few years. That's been challenging for us because labor is so intensive in a restaurant. So that's been a problem. Regulation on how to manage labor and labor-related issues, that gets complex. So we have to have more training on HR functions. What are the rights of an employer? What are the rights of an employee? And how not to accidentally overstep those rights, because the penalties for doing so can be severe now.
What's an example of that, Nick?
An example of something like that.
I mean, are you talking about like how you can communicate with employees, or like what are some of the things that have been more recently regulated?
Well, like for example, let me think. In terms of breaks, let's say breaks at a restaurant. Breaks is a big part of a restaurant. Like when at our place, we let everyone take a break. If you work a short shift, which is 4 hours or less, we give a 15-minute break, and if you work over 5 hours, we give a half-hour break. Like the rule is that if you work 6 hours, you should be getting a break, a half-hour break. And if someone works 6.5 hours, let's say, and didn't get that half-hour break, how you handle something like that. Or if someone punched in or is going to work, say they're going to work 6.5 hours, and they're mandated to take the break. How do you handle the break? When? Where? So breaks is a big issue with employees. People that have hindrances on how they perform their work after they've been hired. For example, say someone can lift something now, but then in 2 months later they can't lift something. How you manage a disability of someone when they're working for you, when you hire them. those are all issues that need to be carefully dealt with, and you have to be properly briefed on how to manage, and you have to train and brief your help also, because you may be the owner and you may be able to do it, but if you're remote, if you're alone or you're not there, and you have someone else that has the position, and if they make a mistake because they're not the responsibility at the end of the day is still going to be with the owner. So if an employee makes a mistake on how they handle someone else, I'm still going to be the one to pay for it.
Right.
For example. So yeah, like doing the training, it's a lot of work communicating those kind of training features in a standalone type of establishment. If I was a big chain, the managers there generally they have a more robust type of training program, and there's a lot of other oversight in terms of all those functions. Where in a standalone, you're one or two people running the show, and it's easy to not be able to understand everything that's going on and all the changes that are happening. Like, for example, in New York now, they're proposing a rule where you have to post a schedule for 2 weeks in advance at least. And then later, if you make an adjustment to that schedule, you will have to pay the employees the adjustments you make at least 3 hours or something like that. I don't know exactly what the exact deal is, but if that rule comes out, imagine how much more burden it is on the independence, on the scheduling, on the requirements, on the rules. Those are things that, if you're busy every day trying to take care of your day-to-day stuff, keeping up with all these regulatory issues becomes very difficult. And I think that's why you see less and less independence and more of these big chains.
Well, certainly certainly in highly regulated states like you're in. I mean, I can't imagine keeping up with all that. Well, let me ask you this. So those are some of the things that, maybe chains can have some advantages with, as you said, with being able to manage through some of that. But what do you think are some of the advantages that an independently owned restaurant has over a chain?
The advantages could be that you would be more flexible if you want to make changes. And a chain is not very flexible. They're very rigid, and they're not very customizable even for specific things, especially from a customer's point of view. Their standard, their service is very regulated, and that's their advantage and their disadvantage. But if you're independent, you can change, you can alter, you can do things that might make more sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But definitely an independent is at a disadvantage. They don't have the marketing budgets. They don't have the management support that an independent would need, unless you're a bigger organization or part of a bigger one still, even if you're an independent. Those would be these. And they don't have the like a lot of independents maybe start off, are startups. They might not have the experience. They might not be able to, the buying power is another disadvantage. Chains they buy in bulk for their whole group, let's say, in one way or another, or in mini groups, which help. And that's another thing. We've been able to be part of some buying groups, which help us get better pricing or rebates from suppliers, which help us with our cost.
Well, I think I think you're modest in a way, because I really think like what you all are doing is, there's something that you have that chains could never have, which is that long tenure of family-run restaurant, of staff that have been there, a couple that have been there since the beginning, people that are part of the community, the dollars that are spent at your restaurant stay in the community with, a local family that owns the business, and you're able to engage members of your community on just a much more personable, authentic way than a chain possibly could. And I would imagine your customers are so many of them are regulars for that reason, because people are, they're looking for that. And, more and more these days, people are looking for something that that feels like home, that feels personal, that feels local, that feels like something they can relate to, and you guys have that advantage every day for sure. And y'all clearly do a great job with that. So, and your customers know it, and that's why you've been in business for almost 30 years, Nick. Man, y'all are doing really good work, and I appreciate the chance to talk to you. We appreciate the chance to serve y'all. Let your team know that we're stoked that y'all are doing business the way that you do, because you've been successful at a long time for good reason, man. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You're awesome. Yep. Well, okay. Thank you also. It was fun sharing a little bit, and I hope if anyone's listening, they get some ideas and could help them with their place or their business. And it's always been about being flexible and trying and working hard and trying to do what can make things better and more efficient and more value for the customer at the end of the day.
I hear you, man. Working hard, being flexible, and keeping the customer first. That's
right.
It's the way to do it. Well, Nick, thank you very much for the time. Thank you for the conversation, and I'm always around if you ever need anything. I'll let you run, and safe travels to you, man, next time you head out. Be safe. And,
Great.
Take
Great.
care.
Well, thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
take care, Nick.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.